In Baghead, there's a pub, and in that pub, there's a basement, and in that basement, there's a hole in the wall, and in that hole in the wall, there's a supernatural woman with a sack over her head that can let people talk to the dead. The concept's got potential, but let's see how Baghead fares. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Enchanté.
Okay. Usually you do that when we're doing like a foreign movie and you'll try and like, you know, match up a language to the movie, but...
This was foreign enough.
It was set in like a... I mean, it feels... I mean, technically... The character's from the UK. In fact, the dad's even Scottish, so it is a foreign country to me. But it does say something that I don't consider English-speaking places as foreign movies. I only consider movies set in countries where they speak a different language as foreign. But that's a whole other psychological, societal kettle of fish.
So, has Scotland officially adopted Kate Sith as their national mascot?
No, I'd never heard of Kate Sith until I played Fallout 7 Rebirth and got to Kate Sith and was surprised it had a Scottish accent. And I was like, oh, the cat's got a Scottish accent, that's exciting. And then so
I'm curious like when they decided on that, because like the first Final Fantasy 7 PlayStation, like obviously the cutscenes and stuff in that didn't really have voice acting. And then I don't know if the first time we heard him talk was in the Advent Children movie, which I do believe he had a Scottish accent in that.
Well,
I wonder if it was just like
the name does come from Scottish Gaelic, I believe. It is a Scottish name.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, so it's not a surprise in a sense. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, this is a weird introduction. This is a horror movie podcast. We get together, we talk about horror movie. We are shipping away some new 2024 movies right now. And today we're going to be looking at a movie called Baghead. So we'll start spoiler free, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. And just before we start, I'll say that if you're enjoying the show, do remember to hit the like button. Helps us out a bunch if you're on YouTube. And of course, you can get some bonuses, including an exclusive episode every month over in Patreon. But I'll tell you more about that stuff at the end. So, what is Baghead, you may ask? Well, Baghead is a movie about...
your sex life?
Are you referring to a bag been over a lady's head, or are you referring to a condom?
See, I would assume that the ladies make you wear
oh, okay. Well, that's better, because I was about to say that's a very sexist joke, Tim. But if you're saying that I have to wear the bag, then that's fine. I guess. Aside from the fact that the insulting part, that's not as cool, but yeah.
I wasn't trying to be insulting. It's just I know how big a fan of Resident Evil you are, especially the remake. So maybe you want to do some role playing.
What, where I dress as Lisa Trevor? It's a very specific kink you seem to be shoehorning me in there, Timmy. No,
if the bag fits.
So yeah, it basically is. It's kind of a weird premise. It's about like I don't know, like an undead witch or I don't know what you call her, but basically Baghead is this supernatural creature that is confined to a basement of a pub in, I think, Germany, and you can go to her and basically, if you play by the rules, we'll get into all that in spoilers, but if you play by the rules, you can talk to a dead loved one. That's the basic premise. And the movie revolves around this young woman who inherits the place from her dad, who sort of dies in the opening sort of prologue of the movie. And it's hard to sort of discovering that this thing's in the basement and what it means and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And that is the premise of the film. So we'll get into, obviously, things in spoilers properly, but that's the gist of it for now.
Well, I will correct you on something, because I don't want to see you get raked over the comments, but I don't think it specifically has to be a loved one. I think it can just be any dead person.
Okay, true. It can be, but I think...
Listen, I don't want to see your ass getting raked over in the comments, okay?
Thank you, Tim. You're a hero. Looking out for me like that. I should... how did I get so lucky to land you? Oh, dear. Tim, what did you think of Baghead, you son of a bitch?
So I'll start off with something somewhat positive, which is I do like the the main idea of Baghead, I guess. I think it's an interesting type of creature, which, I can't really think of. Well, I was gonna say it kind of feels unique, but also like, I know movies and stuff take a while to make, so I'm assuming that, Talk to Me wasn't out when they came up with this, and it's different in a lot of respects, but it does feel like, oh, that movie really ate this movie's lunch, because it's both movies about like very specific things you do to talk to a dead one, and there's very specific rules you have to follow, and then the kind of horror comes from what happens when people break those rules and kind of get addicted to it. And I mean, it goes off in very different directions, but I couldn't help but think about that similarity.
The thought occurred to me at one point, particularly when someone set a timer. I went, oh wait, this is I'm getting some Talk to Me vibes here.
Yeah. So with that out of the way, though, I'll say that the movie sucks. I'm sorry. It's just, again, like, I was mildly interested in this. I don't know if it's just because, we follow a lot of horror people and stuff, that I feel like maybe this movie was a bit of a bigger deal than it was, because I saw like some people mentioning it, or maybe I'm just easy to get fooled by like Shudder's newsletters. Whenever Shudder's like, we got a new movie, and it's the one everyone's talking about. It's like, oh really? And then it's like, but no, I just think everything about this was pretty dull, both in terms of like filmmaking and story. Like, there wasn't really anything visually interesting. There was some really shoddy special effects. The characters I just thought were so boring and really had like no life to them. They do this thing that, I don't know, this really just makes me like zone out of a movie, when you have characters that they just like, how do you put it, like, I don't want to say like they should be cracking jokes and like smiling more or whatever, but they like, everything is just so like, they just seem so bored and like done with everything. I don't know, that there's nothing like interesting that made me care about it. And then and I'm assuming that obviously it's a low budget movie, so they probably don't have a lot of money for extras and stuff, but like, I thought it was going to be more interesting, like, oh, she inherits this pub, so then I thought would there be more life to it, like the pub would still be running, and then
it's not open. It's not an open pub. Let's get that the way.
So it's just like the setting is just boring. Like, there's never anyone else there. It's just like these few people. Even like when the few times that they go outside of the pub, like you don't really see that many people or whatever. And I don't know. I just felt bored with a lot of it. And then again, like the conceit of Baghead and everything was a little more interesting to me. But then once like supernatural stuff starts happening, it just gets so cliche and tropey. It's making the same noises we've heard every like twitchy, demony, witchy kind of thing make in every horror movie.
I'll tell you what I don't ever need to hear again is that sound that's meant to be like bones cracking when like the spooky things moving around. Oh my, I'm so done. Yeah, I'm so done with it. This did suck. There's no way to beat around the bush. What's so funny, the most interesting thing about this movie, honestly, is the fact that I started it, I went, this main girl looks familiar. It's because she's in the new Planet of the Apes. So it's just funny that we happened to do this like the same within a week of that coming out. Obviously by the time this episode goes out it'll be a few weeks, but that's just so yeah. Freya Allan's the main, and I had no idea she was English because she's got an American accent, and I think I've seen her written before. So
I didn't mind her as an actress, but like I thought the character, they don't give her anything. Oh yeah,
the character has nothing. Peter Mullan, who plays the father, he's a Scottish actor who I have seen and liked in other things. But I mean, that's about it. Like, I don't have anything really particular to say about him here. Apparently, Saffron Burrows was in this in a minor role, and I don't think I noticed her. So, fair enough.
I don't even know who that is.
She was the lead in Deep Blue Sea, which is a movie I quite like, actually. But she's the worst part of Deep Blue Sea.
Maybe she was like the mom or something.
Oh, maybe she was. Yeah, maybe
that mom that comes back.
Yeah. But anywho, this is. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head with a few of the things you said there, but I really felt like we were going through the motions of every like trope from the last like decade or so of supernatural horror movies. The actual core premise at least has its own little spin to it, but the way everything's filmed, the way, like you say, the noises are the same generic noises we've been hearing. I thought it was doing this thing that was making me laugh quite a bit, actually, was where it wanted to have something be like a little jump scare, even if it was just someone like talking suddenly off camera, and it would do this quick couple of little edits where it would sort of cut to the face and then cut to like a sort of quick motion and then back to the face, but it would do it in like, like a second. It'd be like a couple of frames, and it would be like trying to like make the jump scare more like stylish or whatever, more stylized. And the first time it happens, which has been like a character, it's basically like the realtor or lawyer character who like comes and talks to the daughter. When he enters the scene and says hello, and it's maybe like a jump scare, and you've seen that in other movies where, you know, things are quiet and the character gets startled because someone speaks suddenly without any notice, but they'd go out of their way with the edit to really try and make this feel like a big bombastic jump scare, and it just made me chuckle because I'm like, you're trying so hard. You're trying so hard, and I'm seeing through it. It's really sad. And then some of the effects are pretty dire. They're doing things they shouldn't be doing. I think the ending's weird and just feels like it feels like it goes down a path where they thought, oh, this is like an edgy way to end it, but it just kind of felt like an unfulfilling conclusion. I think there's definitely moments where characters are being dumb.
Oh, absolutely.
Given what has been told to them already in the movie by that point. Yeah, I have very little good to say about it. I mean, I don't think it's the worst thing we've ever done in the show. You know, it's definitely more in... It's not at the bottom of the absolute trash pile. It's kind of leaning towards more that mediocre, I'm sick of seeing this shit, uninspired sort of level, but it's... Yeah.
Yeah, like, the one thing that I'll give it credit for is I guess I was interested enough in the monster / creature, whatever you want to call it, that I at least kind of wanted, like, you know, if we weren't watching it for the show, like, you know, like when you're watching something that's not for the show, that, you know, there's always a chance that I used to be more militant about, oh no, I must finish it if I start it, but as I get older and have less time for stuff, I'm like, you know, if something's not catching my attention and, you know, the first 20-30 minutes or whatever, I'm okay with shutting it off, like I recently did with Basic.
Is that a John Travolta movie?
Yeah.
Okay. I've not seen it, but I can picture the DVD cover in my head.
Yeah. I was going through all the McTiernan movies, which what a career.
Hey, he made some damn masterpieces, but yeah, some later movies were a bit stinkier.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a weird fall from grace because, yeah, like his first couple of movies are just some of like the most memorable
yeah, Predator and Die Hard are like next level.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah. But whatever. But I guess what I was alluding to though is that I was at least interested enough in what this creature was or what the deal was that I at least want, even though I wasn't enjoying the movie, I did kind of want to complete it aside from the show just to find out what the deal was. Not that it was anything satisfying, but there's at least enough pull there that I wanted to keep going.
Yeah, okay. Actually, on this subject, so this movie does have a research scene, which you know, I was tweeting about how you have to have the stupid research scene, but it also has the character explains a shit ton of exposition scene as well separately. That came later, and when that happens, it's so much exposition dump, and it's so much of like. We're going to have visuals of like drawings and photographs and things like as the character's telling this story, and it's such a dump. It's just so like inelegant the way it's done. It's like I actually like zoned out and missed like 10 seconds of what was being said. I went, I need to like go back because I can't just jump back in here. Like I have to go back. I don't understand what he's talking about now. And then it also similar vein to this, and this really I won't say anything that's in it obviously because from the ending. But there's a moment towards the end where it does the Sauce style, we're revealing a twist. So here's a series of like quick flashbacks, which in supposedly a new context that reveals something. Except there was no twist. It just did it. It just did the series of flashbacks of things that happened in the movie already with dramatic music. as if it was building up to a, because this is what was really going on the whole time, and then there wasn't a thing that was really going on the whole time. It just was what it was. I'm like, was that just a way to kill like a minute? Or actually, my guess is that there's a character talking over it. They probably thought, oh, the character just saying all this is really visually dull because they're just standing there with the character talking. So we're just going to have this montage as if we're revealing a twist in a Saw movie happening. I could almost hear the dan 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 dan. So yeah,
and I did get kind of excited, because we talk about a lot how we're always kind of fascinated when you have these supernatural movies or whatever, and they have these specific rules that you have to follow, because it's always such an easy, fun concept because you set up these things, and then the fun is like, okay, but what's going to happen when the people break them? And that was another thing that kind of pulled me in early on is, okay, yeah, we're setting up all these rules about this creature. I like this. But then it was just like nothing really interesting ever, came from them.
No,
it was just like, I mean,
sometimes it felt like it didn't matter when they were kind of broken, and other times it felt like characters were just putting themselves in places that didn't make sense. And
like, I never really fully understood what the extent of this creature's power was, or what would happen if she was to escape, or they set up a lot of stuff that I just feel like never fully paid off, or
I think
at least wasn't.
For me, by the time they started setting up a bunch of rules, which I do like, is something that I do appreciate, they'd already kind of like the opening like prologue sequence had some of the goofy bad effects in it, and like the way they shot whatever we saw with the villain in that part of the movie already like made me go, oh, this is going to be shit. Like I kind of knew from the first 5 minutes, so I never even got like a sense of hope when they started introducing rules. It kind of already lost me. It really would have had to have been consistently strong to win me back after that really rough opening, but it never does. Like it just kind of stays at that level for the most part. There's periods of dull, don't get me wrong, there's dull periods, and then there's laughably bad periods. There's actually a line towards the end that made me burst out laughing, which I'll bring up when we get there in spoilers, but it wasn't meant to be a funny line, I'll just say that. Also, did you notice that despite the fact that this pub's in Germany, right, and the main character is English, and she goes to Germany because her dad dies in the opening, and that she's going there to like sort of, identify the body and the will and all the rest of it, dealing with the estate. Did you not think it was weird that despite the fact that this movie's set in Germany, we don't even see one single person ever speak another language?
Well, I mean, we barely see any other
That's
people.
True.
Like,
there's not even anyone with a German accent, though. Every character in the movie is English or Scottish.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even remember that part where they say where it's located, so I must have missed that or just completely forgotten about it, because I just assumed that this was like in England or Ireland or something.
No, honestly, I knew it was somewhere else because she got on a plane, right? People in the UK don't typically get on a plane to go somewhere else in the UK. It's too small for that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it does happen. Sense. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like you can get a domestic flight, but given that this character's meant to be like dirt poor and struggling for money, as we find out at the start of the movie, it'd be weird for her to get a flight when she could just get the train for a fraction of the price. But
makes sense, yeah.
I never got where it was set either until the research scene, because the newspaper that was on the computer said it was, well, one, it was all in German, but two, it was like the Berlin Post or something like that. So
that's right, yeah. And the like original person in that scene or whatever, like I feel like he might have had like a German name or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of the previous owners that were like the photographs were on the wall. I think some of them had German names and stuff, but we never even have like one character say Guten Tag or something like that. It's just so weird.
It's so strange. Yeah, it feels so like unnecessary.
Like the policeman or coroner, whoever it is that's talking to her when she like arrives in Germany, is just speaking in English, which is fine. This guy speaks English. But then, like, everyone else she talks to speaks English. The other major character, Neil, who's this guy who wants to come and see the Baghead, I guess we'll just call it Baghead. Like, he's like English. And I think his wife might have had some kind of accent, but I don't think it was German. So I don't know.
Maybe.
Very strange, very strange. But it kind of just adds to that feeling that you were talking about, though, where it feels like I have no problem with, like, see if the whole movie was just set in the pub, that would be fine, because it would feel like that's normal. But the fact that we do go to other places and the streets are just empty, like, you know, no one ever speaks in any other language, it just feels strange. But yeah, so yeah. Also, what sort of like cell phone plan is this main character Iris on? Because when you travel to a different country, like most of them will charge you through the roof if you use any data whilst you're outside the region that you're paying for. And she is using her phone quite happily throughout this movie. I wonder if they just didn't think of that, or if what, but
why would they? Why would they give the script a second look?
Yeah. All right, is there anything else we want to add before we jump into spoilers?
I don't know. I'm disappointed in you, movie. you let me down.
Yeah, I mean, I was feeling quite bad for a while because we had a string of bad movies for a bit. I don't feel bad with this one, though, because we just were quite positive on Infested. We were pretty positive on Late Night with the Devil just a few weeks ago. So, you know, we've broken the streak. It's okay. We can sprinkle in shit movies again without feeling guilty that we're being negative.
And those were all, things on Shudder as well. So,
true.
Can't get too down on the shuds, but let's try to step up the game a little bit.
Oh, they could up the streaming quality. That'd be nice. Hear me for that?
Shots fired.
Like, I'm just saying, it's 2024, and they're
sorry,
like,
is 8K not good enough? You need the full 10.
It's not even 1080p on most devices, Tim.
Oh, we're done with P's. We're on the K's now. Catch up.
Well, you can still the P's are still in the K's. 4K's 2160p.
So you're one of those people. All right.
What, who understands what a resolution is? Yes, I'm one of those people. I guess I didn't realize it was a signifier we had to point out.
There's different schools of thought in the picture quality world.
Yeah, there is different schools of thought. There's educated and uneducated. Oh dear. Okay, let's say spoilers then, shall we, for Baghead?
Shall we?
You have been warned. All right, so when the dad in the opening scene tries to like burn down Baghead in the building to end the curse once and for all, it obviously ends up with him just being on fire himself, and that's how he dies. This fire effect on him as he was like crawling up the stairs was so bad.
Very bad.
I'm like, you could have just like done a quick flash of like a stuntman on fire and then just seen the glow from around the corner. Hear the screams. That's all you need. You don't
like. Is it that much more expensive to actually light a person on fire? Like,
I mean, expensive. I'm not probably, but even if it isn't, the problem I think that they want to get around is they don't want to have a stuntman. They don't want to have a fire safety person to pay. You know, there's a lot of things. But this looks so bad. It looks so superimposed on top of him. It just did not look good. Yeah. So, you know, it was a rough start to the movie. But even like some of the quick edits when you first see Baghead, was a bit rough. Like I didn't really like it. Also, by the way, before he does this, Neil does come to the pub and wants to pay him to see Baghead. So he is actually there before the rest of the movie. He has a brief bit here at the start. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have much more to add about the opening, to be honest. But
no,
it did not set me in a good mood for the rest of it. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Once we come after the title or whatever, we get introduced to Iris, which is the daughter of the guy that just set himself on fire. Not intentionally necessarily, but he did. And she is down in her luck. She's been evicted from her flat in England, and her friend is helping her sort of get her stuff, and she's going to move in with her. And it's right then when she gets a phone call about her dad. And I don't know if this was an attempt at humor when her friend's like, "You told me your dad was dead," and she's like, "Well, he is now." And like, you know,
Yeah.
So she flies to Germany and identifies the body and is encountered by this mysterious sort of lawyer type figure who's like there to say, hey, we need to settle these affairs and all that, and also deal with these property. And she's like, property? What property? Cut to her being introduced to the pub and sort of like seeing that it's not obviously functioning, it's not been open in a long time, but he was keeping this place and living here, yada yada yada. All of this is to say that she is going to spend the night here because she wants to just kind of, I don't know, get the vibes and see where her dad was living for a while. And while she's there, this Neil character shows up, and he shows up inside the building like a stalker. So she is rightfully scared and is like sort of holding up like a bottle of booze at him as if it's a weapon. And he wants to see her, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about, her? It's like, I want to see her. And she's like, what? Wait, who? In the basement. And she's like, I don't have a key. And she obviously is not interested until he's like, hey, I'll pay you 2,000, I assume euros for it. And she's like, oh, I actually need money. And she keeps sort of saying no. And he's like, okay, I'll pay you 4,000. And she's like, well, I don't have a key. Can you come back tomorrow with the rest of the money? And she like takes the money he's already put out. And so this is like giving her motivation. She doesn't even believe there's anything down there as of yet. She's just sort of letting this crazy guy go down to the basement to get paid money. Right? That's her plan.
Yeah, they weirdly... I feel like the characters never believably react to like how crazy the situation is. Like,
that's fair.
It all seems to happen like fairly quickly. Like, obviously, yeah, the money is like a big factor, and yeah, she seems like she's kind of more credulous at first, but even eventually, like when they see Baghead and stuff, like they seem to get on board like fairly quickly, like, which is like kind of insane given how like crazy like everything is. Yeah,
no, it's not like arguably the friend who I think is Katie. There's no photo on IMDb for her, so I'm just assuming the third person on the list is Katie. Yeah. So because her friend Katie like comes to see her, she's like, "Oh, you've got this place. I'm going to come and help you out and like be there as a friend." And she arrives like the next day or whatever. And Iris explains to her what's going on with this guy showing up with money, and she's like, "Are you serious? You're gonna let this weird stranger to come in?" And he's like, "Look, he paid me. It's $4,000. Like that's such a good, get things started money for us. We can start. I can go to school. I can get the degree I want. You can do your art stuff. Like she's all excited about it."
I was never quite sure, were they in a relationship or were they just friends? I never really.
No, they're just friends.
Knew. Okay.
I mean, if they were trying to imply they were a romantic couple, I never got that from the movie.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure because, like, I mean, like you were saying, like the way they kind of make it sound like, just talking like, oh, like this could be like a fresh start for us and stuff. Like, I don't know, it's like not the kind of thing I usually like. I don't know, talk to my friends about. Like, we need a fresh start. Like, let's get a like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. They just wanted her to have this is actually
another person there.
Yeah, this is actually why it's stupid to set it in a different country. See, if it was just like I don't know, an hour away in the train, like in the same country, it would be far more believable that her friend just comes to hang out. But the fact that her friend gets on a plane, comes to Germany just to be there for emotional support. I mean, it's a very good friend. Don't get me wrong, but like. She's still kind of like, it feels very convenient for the sake of the fact that, we have to have someone there that Iris cares about so that when, we're in spoilers, when she dies later, it means something bad's happened to someone she cares about. So that's just the reason, Yeah.
It is something I like called very quickly. I was like, oh, well, she's obviously going to die first. And she'll be the thing that will cause Iris to be like a lot more sloppy and break some rules or whatever.
Yeah, because this is the thing. Like she goes to basically accept ownership of the pub, which the day before she wasn't intended in doing. Like the The guy was just like, oh, you can like, appoint me as the executor so I can sell it for you, kind of thing. And she's like, no, I want this place, at least for a little while. I can always sell it, when I'm done, but I want to kind of, and I think the excuse she gives is that she wants to be where her dad was to sort of try and learn about him. In reality, she just wants the keys so that she can make this money from this weirdo who wants to go into the basement. But of course, this is a magic contract. More on this later.
Whoa.
Right? So, anyway.
Which, I mean, I don't know much about contracts or contract law, but I feel like the contract should be like null and void if there's like a big stipulation, like a Baghead type figure that you're taking the responsibility for. Like,
well, I don't think it's a lawful contract, Tim. I think it's purely a magical contract. It's not really obeying the rules of the countries. Okay,
I'm just saying.
So Neil shows up, right, and he's got the rest of the money. And like the entire time, like Katie's like, because Katie's here by this point, and she's like standing next to Iris, being like, "Okay, I'm like the bodyguard. I'm not like you try it in funny sunshine, right?" So they go out of the basement, and there's this hole in the wall, and they're looking at it, and Neil walks up a little bit further, and he's like, "Hey, can you come out, please?" And of course, out comes Baghead very slowly out the darkness, and of course, this is getting to your point before, is that while they do react to the fact that there's actually a person down here, like behind the wall, it doesn't feel, at least from Iris, doesn't feel as extreme as it should be. Especially since, once she keeps coming and Neil shouts out, "Hey, you're you own this place now. She has to do what you say. Tell her to like stop or tell her to whatever." And she barks out the order, "Stop moving. Don't come near me." And immediately Baghead sort of stops and sort of stays still. And it's like, oh, you have like some weird power over her. Okay, we're learning what's going on here. And Iris's reaction to this, which should be, one, there's a weird, creepy looking person with a bag over their head in the basement. That's a big one, right? And then two, I have the power to tell her what to do and she'll just obey it. That's strange. And her reaction to those two things is to just say, the price just doubled.
Right.
And Neil's like, "Yeah, fine, anything. I'll pay $8,000. It's fine." I'm like, okay. And of course, further back in the room, Katie's like, "Are you serious, Iris? Why are we not running? Why are we not going? This is weird. Can we go now?" So like, it almost felt like they knew Iris was like going to act so unnatural to like everything for the audience perspective that Katie's character almost exists to be like this. Like, yeah, she's saying what the audience is kind of thinking to make us feel less frustrated by it. But I don't know if it actually solves that, because I feel like it's still frustrating having Iris just still ignore everything she says.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It does make her seem like kind of a shit friend. Like,
oh yeah, she takes Katie for granted, no question. Yeah. Katie's a saint, and Iris is just this, self-absorbed little bitch, quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, like, I understand how, especially nowadays, like, money it's very expensive to just exist in this world. And I think that's like a very real concern, like, especially for like younger people that are, making their way or whatever.
Younger people, it's a concern for me, Tim. And I just turned 35.
Oh, dear Lord. But like, I understand that, yeah, like money is a big factor for people, and it can make people like lose, their sense of a better judgment and stuff. So totally understand that. But yeah, like you're saying, you shouldn't, like, you should still be like freaking out about this weird situation that's like going on.
Oh yeah, that supersedes your financial worries, right? You're not thinking about that in this one. You're thinking about the creepy person who just walked out from behind the wall with a sack over their head.
Yeah. And again, like, I thought, where this was going is that, she needs some money, so she's going to reopen the bar, and, we're going to see more clientele, and there'll be more people that'll be interested in the Baghead and so, kind of thing. But
there is, in fact, exactly 0 more clients that come to see Baghead in this movie.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's just like, you have a very interesting monster there, but then you're not really, I feel like, doing like everything that you could. But let's keep going though, because I really want to talk about some of the dumb stuff they do with the, I guess like the rituals and thing.
Well, the instructions videotape gets played after this whole scene, but this scene still plays out first, which is that they get Baghead to sit in the chair. He straps her to the chair, Neil, and he pulls out his like wife's wedding ring, because that's who he wants to talk to, right? Because it's only been hinted up until this point, but this scene makes it clear that he believes he can speak to his dead wife through Baghead. So Baghead lifts up a little bit of the sack, right? You see a sort of like, you know, zombie-esque looking mouth, and pops in the ring, swallows the ring, and then we get a really, really like over the top cheesy like sort of CG transition where the sort of the, you know, the evil looking hands kind of straighten out. We get the bone sound effects as they become normal hands, and then Neil lifts up the bag, and it's not actually his dead wife. So he's made an error here, because the wedding ring that his wife had was one that used to belong to his mother. So it's actually his dead mother that appears here. But, you know, it makes
that is kind of funny.
It is a little bit funny, but it makes the point that, yeah, if you give a kind of a possession that meant something to the person that died, Baghead will consume it, and then, you know, which I guess means there's also a size limit, because, like, what if you bring a piano? Like,
right, yeah.
This is my wife's piano. She loved it.
So two slightly positive things I will actually say is I do think the having to eat something, I mean, yeah, I did think the same thing, like, all right, well, what about stuff that you can't really easily eat? But I mean, aside from that, I do think that is an interesting idea. Like, okay, that's kind of weird, but in a weird way that I kind of like. And then, yeah, like all the dumb transformation stuff was stupid, but I do think that was kind of a fun idea of, oh, like once they're embodying the dead, you lift up the bag and the person is there. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. Like, yeah, we'll never actually see what Baghead looks like, but we do take the bag off and see like a fun idea. Like,
I know, I agree.
I'll give him credit for that.
The core concept of like you lift the bag up and the person you want to talk to is there instead is interesting. Yeah. Like I don't think that's a bad idea.
Now, here's one big thing that drove me crazy about this whole ritual or thing. So the big I guess danger or whatever is that you only get to talk to the dead people for 2 minutes.
Well, we don't know that yet. That's like so this comes up because they go past 2 minutes, and what happens at the 2 minute mark is that it stops being the person, right? The face will still be there, but it'll stop being the person. The eyes go jet black, and it'll be like effectively Baghead just like taunting them, almost like Reagan in The Exorcist. It's like, oh, like your mother is like sucking cocks in hell. I shouldn't say that, but like something to that effect. Like she'll start saying mean, hateful things, like, oh, I hated you, I wanted an abortion or something like that, right? And then he's like, oh yeah, I forgot there was a rule that you can only do it for 2 minutes, and that seemed quite important. And then obviously the videotape afterwards like clarifies that further. But yeah, so we learn that rule because that's one that's broken the first time this happens, is that the 2 minute thing passes and we get, okay, this is what happens, is that it seems like for those 2 minutes it is the real person, right? As far as we know, it's the real person for those 2 minutes. And then after that 2 minutes, it's just the demon with the face and taunting you. So
yeah, and then I don't know, I felt like a little just kind of lost, like, you know, once the 2 minutes are up, it's like, all right, so does she just have like infinite supernatural power to pretty much do like whatever she wants? And then yeah, I guess what is putting the bag over her head what basically stops everything?
Yeah, maybe the bag conceals it in some way. I mean, honestly, the extent of her powers is very
wishy-washy.
It's ill-defined. So, I mean, just to sort of like, we'll talk about the videotape rules as well, because there's a tape that her dad made, and he's like, hey, if you're watching this, then I failed, and it's still a thing. Here's the rules, right? So he mentions the ones that we kind of saw in action already, which is she'll consume something, she'll become the dead person, you can only do it for 2 minutes, but the role of the protector, the person who now owns the pub, is one, you're cursed to be here. You cannot leave. If you try and leave, like any great, because I assume you can still go out to get like supplies and stuff, but if you like intend to leave and run away, bad things will start happening around you. Like, there'll be weird, mysterious deaths and like, I almost felt like that sounds like an interesting movie that she tries to run, and all these bad things keep happening for like a whole act, and that makes her to come back after she learns that. But we never even test that theory. It never even gets put into action. So that's okay, interesting enough. She's trapped here to do this, but it's an important role because Baghead wants to get out into the world. But Baghead is trapped down there. She has to follow what the Protector says for whatever reason. However, there's an important rule to that, is that only on this side of the wall. On this side of the wall, you cannot be harmed if you're the Protector. Everyone else can be harmed, so it's important that you're not down there without the Protector. But if you ever go through the hole in the wall to the other side into like the tunnel area, you're in jeopardy in there. Like, they can, like, the Baghead can kill you in there, and Baghead wants to kill you because Baghead's goal is to get out into the world and do what? I don't know, wreak havoc, cause chaos, kill millions of people. Who knows? Like, it's
set up an OnlyFans.
Do you know what? I bet there's a fetish for like completely naked except the bag on the head. Like, there's
sure.
There's someone's got a fetish for that. It's a market. You put us in this corner. It's up to you to get us out of
it. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff about this that annoyed me because, again, just probably gonna say it a lot, but like you're saying, like, everything is just very ill-defined, and I think it's very interesting to set up all the rules, but then it's annoying because it kind of immediately feels like, well, the rules don't really matter because she can kind of also just do whatever she wants, like, almost kill you in your sleep by like strangling you and that stuff. Like,
well, yeah, well, that's the other part of this, is that he says that like the Protector themselves should not use the ability, right? They shouldn't like have Baghead become a dead person that they want to see, because every time you do it, Baghead gets stronger. And I wasn't sure if Baghead just in general kept getting stronger from every single person she like did this with, or if it was specifically she was getting stronger over you. And the idea being that she can like telepathically reach out and make you have bad dreams and stuff to trick you into breaking the other rules to let her out. Because there's a big sequence like not too long after this where Iris has a nightmare, but we don't. It's a horror movie. It's one of those things where you don't realize it's like, we obviously, as watchers of horror movies, I think we predicted probably it was a nightmare, but the movie's not presenting it as a nightmare. But there's a whole thing where she's hearing like a voice from beyond the hole in the wall, and she's like walking into it, and I'm like, oh, is this like this is all a ruse to get you to do this, is to go walk behind the wall. And she ends up waking up just feeling strangled effectively. But it does beg some questions. It's like, well, if Baghead can do this, like, can it not just kill her?
Right, yeah.
And like that's it over, but seemingly not. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's kind of strange. So yeah, that part felt weird to me, because I like the idea of if the main mechanic of this movie is Baghead trying to trick the main character and give them a reason to go behind that hole in the wall, and like eventually something works, where it's like, it's not even that they're tricked and they're idiots for making that choice, but the idea that, oh, there's a reason why they'll take the risk later because there's something so important, right? And that's kind of what happens eventually with the friend maybe being behind the hole in the wall. But it's, I feel like even that moment doesn't play like it's a big enough deal. It feels like she just like, she doesn't like doubt it. Like she should be like questioning, should I actually do this? She should be like so scared of walking through that hole. And it feels like she pauses for like a second and then just walks in. Like there's no like, oh, this is like breaking the biggest rule. Back there, I'm vulnerable. Because you could thematically make that something. You could say, oh, after everything her friend's done for her, this is her putting herself at risk. She's making herself be vulnerable to save her friend. This could be the big selfless act that like makes her endeared by the end to the audience. Instead, it doesn't feel like that at all. It just feels like, okay, yeah, of course she is.
Yeah.
There's no drama to it. It just happens.
I mean, I don't want to skip ahead too much, but at least when she does go into the wall, it is like really cool and interesting and like a unique like place. Like, yeah.
Do I detect some sarcasm there, Timmy?
Maybe just a tad.
I think the big thing for me is there's a moment when she goes into the behind the wall later into these sort of series of tunnels, is that there's a moment where like you see Baghead with the bag off, and it's like a sort of like poking out at the audience jump scare of her face screaming, and it's like a growl, and it's so cheesy. It's so cliched and shit. Like, every decision in this movie with how to portray Baghead, I don't like. Like, I think in concept, a character with a bag over her head where you take the bag off and it's a dead person that you can talk to and there's all these rules. I think on paper, I can see why this is a good idea. On paper, I can see a good movie out of this. The execution, like, I do not like how this movie's directed at all. Never mind the script. The director's this is his first feature-length movie. He did a short film version of this first. You know, it's one of those, I feel like we get these every like few months where there's a director who did a short. Some people like the short, so they were able to expand it into a full movie, and this is the result of that.
I could see the short being like pretty compelling.
Because I assume the short's just one person coming in and like having the thing happen with Baghead. Yeah, I could see the short working.
So then, is the next, I guess, like dead person scene we get when Neil comes back with something from his wife?
Yeah, that might be right. I think I want to say, like, does Katie, the friend, does she like start a research and see a ghost before that happens? I can't remember exactly when that takes place, but she does like a research scene where she's on her laptop looking up articles, and then she like sees a ghost sitting at the bar. Oh yeah. Just another generic chorus supernatural scene for you, just in case you needed anything else.
Yeah, it doesn't. Oh, actually, I remember before what I was thinking of. That I forgot to mention too. One thing that was like kind of interesting, and I liked, the character being proactive is, when she kind of hears the rules and she knows that she has this power and stuff. Like, one of the first things she does is she writes "Do not cross" on the stairs going out. So that's like a fun way of her being like, okay, I understand these rules. I understand how important it is that she can't leave. So one of the first things I'm going to do is kind of set up this safety net.
Yeah, okay. That's not bad.
But
yeah. So,
and then also to that first scene with Neil, like when his mom comes back and then she turns all demony. I mean, we're going to say it a lot, during the review, but like, there's a scene where she's like on top of him and puking something onto him. It looks so bad.
I forgot. Honestly, anytime there's a scene in a movie where a demon, a possessed person, or whatever is just spewing lots of fluid, whatever, whether it's vomit, blood, black goo, whatever, it always looks bad. It always just feels like such a cliche at this point to have that happen. This was another. I'm glad you brought this up because I forgot about it, but I remember just rolling my eyes heavily at it.
And I might be wrong, but I do think like the next time we see him, he like looks pretty dry. Like, I don't know if the idea was like, oh well, it's like it wasn't really there because it was like magic or something, or I don't know, but it definitely didn't look like the continuity was there between those scenes.
Tim's note for the director: Neil was not wet enough. Pass that on. Because I think at this point it's like, hey, we're never doing that again. You should leave, and even like Iris kind of says that. But then once she kind of explores the idea a little bit more, I genuinely can't remember if she talks to her dad or dead dad first, or if it's Neil coming back with because she goes to Neil and like meets with him and sort of talks to him, and that's how he ends up coming back. But either way, we'll tackle both scenes of both dead people. But I don't remember the order.
It's kind of hard because like it happens like a couple of times where it's like, all right, well, I guess we saw the last of Neil, and then like he pops back up again, and like, all right, I guess not.
We've never seen the last. He's like there till the end of the movie.
yeah, but so if we go like to the second scene with him, the big thing that I want to talk about that just drove me crazy, which is like, just talking about characters being dumb, making dumb decisions, is all right. So you have a very specific time limit of how long you can talk before things go crazy, but then all they do is like they set this timer for 2 minutes,
and they don't get to the effing point. I know, yeah, like, they do small talk for like a minute.
Yeah, like one is they don't get to the point, but also it's like, if you know that like you can't go beyond 2 minutes, would you set a timer for 2 minutes, or would you say, let me set it for like 90 seconds just to be safe, because I know that it's going to be like a little difficult to end it like that quick or whatever, at least like so that you're wrapping up. Like it was driving me crazy that I was like, all right, the timer's up, the 2 minutes is up, let's stop now. But it's like, no, like I still gotta talk, and then like seconds are going by when in like, oh no, like things should have like turned to shit like the second it's like 2:01. But
even 1:55, just a few seconds to throw the bag on the head. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but I don't know, that just like was like it's just so stupid to me that you would be like that careless.
Yeah, they pull a little swerve here because like Neil up until this point has been doing the charming British man kind of like, I'm a nice man, you can trust me thing, right? And he wants to speak to his dead wife and get closure. He wants to ask a question, and like they get the dead wife, she's there, and he's talking to her, and she's all emotional, and she's realizing she's dead, and it's whatever. And I'm like, okay, a minute's passed, right? Get to your question. You don't have much time here, Neil. And he's like, who are you seeing? And all of a sudden it takes this kind of turn where it's, oh no, he's not wanting to like say goodbye to his wife. He's obsessed with the idea that she was having an affair, and he wants to know who it was. And it's your first like real hint that he was not the greatest husband in the world, that he is, controlling, and I don't know if they ever quite say he's abusive necessarily, but certainly emotionally abusive, if nothing else.
Sure.
She said, no, there's no one else. But he's like, oh, I knew you were going to leave me. I saw tickets, blah, blah, blah. And she's basically just like admits to that. I mean, we get more of it later because there's like a second scene with the dead wife later on where more stuff comes out. But yeah, so but it takes a really big turn because like the other two characters who are in the room, Iris and Kate, are both looking at each other being like, this is getting awkward. This is like he's coming across as like an obsessed man now, rather than someone sympathetic who's looking for closure. This sounds like someone who wants to know who to go and hunt down as a victim. Like, I want to go and kill whoever you were with.
I guess my question to this is like, is this necessary? Like, we already have so much going on with Baghead and just the whole curse of it and how it's affecting the Iris and everything. Like, do we really need to throw on like this possible like psychopath like murderer seeking revenge on his like dead wife? Like, it feels like a bit much.
He's not a murderer yet, although he's obviously willing to by the end. But it's,
I would say what we find out, I mean, I guess you don't know it right at that moment, but what we find out, I would say he's like pretty responsible for what happens to his wife.
Oh sure, he's responsible, yeah. I mean, he didn't intend to kill her, so there's it's a little bit different from just someone stabbing someone, but it's,
right.
Yeah, because I think the big thing you're saying, like, do we really need this? But the problem is at the end of the movie tries to play it, and I guess this is what the twist is supposed to be, when it was doing that montage and like, oh, we're revealing so much, but none of the scenes reveal anything. It's just the idea that Baghead's reaching out and manipulating people in different ways to try and like get to her goal, which is to finally leave. I think the end of the movie is implying that everything with Neil is that he's just been a pawn in Baghead's game to kill the Protector so that Baghead can get out, right? So the idea that, the reason why he was even picked in the first place, or why he was drawn to this in the first place, was to, like go down this path where he would be the one that Baghead could convince and manipulate to ultimately kill Iris. Or
makes sense.
Or her father before her, I suppose, because that's when it started. But yeah, very, very strange. I can't say like I ever found this character compelling, and the reveal that he's actually kind of maybe a nastier guy was like such an obvious kind of like, not even twist, just a development that it just, I don't know, I didn't really feel a whole lot from it.
I feel like if he was like more like a part of these characters' lives. Like if he kind of inserted himself into the group and was like, trying to be like, oh no, like I'll help you like control her and figure out like what to do, and kind of like if he seemed like he was there throughout most of the movie, I think maybe it'd be a little more interesting. But it feels like after this kind of second part, he just disappears for a long time, and I kind of just assumed that we wouldn't see him again.
Yeah, it's actually I think it's after when she talks to her dead dad that he just kind of shows up out of nowhere pretty much. So she has a whole scene where she uses the tricks to talk to her dad, and I did like one detail here is that when she pulls the hood off and it's her dad, I liked it because he's lived through that, like he did all this for years, that he just knows what's happening. He understands that he's been brought back via Baghead, so he doesn't need that explained to him. He just gets it, and he sees his daughter. So the conversation does progress very quickly and differently than all the other ones, which I do at least kind of like that detail. But he basically just says, "Oh, what are you doing here? Why are you the next in line? Like, why did it have to be you?" And he's very upset by the whole thing. But once it turns, right, and obviously Baghead takes control and it gets nasty, I think this is the scene where Baghead actually manages to get her to go into the hole a little bit. And she comes running out. This is the whole thing. She realizes she's in. Oh wait, no. This is after the friend. Sorry, I'm mixing up two scenes. Forgive me. But yeah, there's the scene where she talks to her dead dad. That's the whole thing. I don't have much to say about the scene in and of itself, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't really care too much about it. Again, like if the characters were more interesting and I was feeling compelled by them, then this could have been a very like, emotional scene, reuniting with your dad. And again, like, there's a whole thing of like, oh, screw this guy because he abandoned us. But then you find out, well, he kind of had to protect you,
Yeah, he says that he tried to go home, but like literally people were dying around him, like as he was on his way.
I think, yeah, and didn't they imply too that's like what killed her mother? Because I think the mother had cancer.
Oh yeah,
and I think kind of implied that like, oh, that might have been because of him.
Yeah, the curse sort of spread to her, and that's what happened. Yeah, so he was protecting her all these years by not going. Yeah, because they try and do the thing like when they're watching the video earlier that he recorded, and at the end he's like, I hated this life, and once upon a time I had a family, I had a daughter, and he kind of like gets just a little bit emotional, and like she starts crying, the tears come down her face because she's seeing that her dad actually cared about him. Like I totally get why this is supposed to work. I get how this is supposed to be an emotional moment, and that we're supposed to care that she's seen her dad, but I think. I don't know. It all felt a little bit hokey, a little bit two dimensional to me, and I never quite got on board with the drama of it. But anyway, I think somewhere in the middle here, Katie gets upset at Iris and is mad that they're just not leaving. Like, why are we not just on a plane? Why are we staying here? And they get so snippy at each other that Katie just leaves. And instead of going home, though, she uses the photograph that she got off of one of the frames to track down where like it was basically the place where one of the guys that used to be here or lived here or whatever, and she tracks down this location and finds like a bunch of documentation from it was a previous protector, that's what it was, and she finds like this guy had like all these like the pin boards up with the strings. He was trying to work out where the guy that was like signing people up to because that was one of the details we didn't mention, is that they try and go to the lawyer's place after the first weird night of like seeing the Baghead lady, and like the office is empty, like no one is there, like no one's ever been there in years. So even this guy was like, ooh, like even the lawyer is like a spooky force that just exists to get people to sign their names up to the place on the deed. But she ends up coming back, and she wants to use an item to talk to this previous protector. The idea being that he might have found something that would help lead them to breaking the curse. So she goes down on her own, which is a big no-no because there's no. This is one of the dumb things. Like all of the rules that protect the people down there are all tied to the protector, which is Iris in this case, being there to control Baghead. But she goes down on her own and, you know, gives the Baghead something of this guy's. And
now, if I'm remembering correctly, like, I think she kind of has something like blueprints or something like that sticking out. And I want to say that, like, Baghead just grabs it and puts it in her mouth herself.
Oh, you may be right, yeah. But either way, this dead guy, like, you know, appears, right? Yeah. And it's this guy who, by the way, if we went back in time, I bet this is way more than 2 minutes. Because
absolutely, yeah.
This guy gives us the exposition monologue where he explains the entire backstory of Baghead. There is a woman with superpowers to communicate with the dead long ago, and that evil men kept using her and abusing her to use this power. And then when she tried to fight back, they accused her of being a witch. They burned her at the stake, and to contain her power, they walled her up in this basement behind the wall, and she remained there for centuries. But then eventually, the descendants of this evil, like, you know, order of rich men or whoever they are, wanted to use her powers again. So they made the hole in the wall and started using her, and somehow all the rules became a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember the end of it too well, but that was the gist of it. But this was like, we already did a research scene, so now we're doing the, you know, people believe the cavemen like fought against the boogeyman. That was borderline the like, and this wouldn't be too bad because at least, like, you could understand there's a train of like the knowledge, like the knowledge could have been passed down kind of thing for this. But the way this is presented with these drawings, and like there's like fire visual effects, like sort of like transitioning between one drawing to the next, it's also over the top. It's also like someone sitting doing like extra graphic design on the editing software to try and make it exciting, because it's so dull. Like, it's all just flashy techniques to try and make it seem more interesting. Oh, I hated it. I hated this, like, this 3-minute period of the movie, like, was maybe the worst of the whole thing.
The way it was presented was bad. The one thing I will kind of give it credit for is, yeah, if you're doing like a research or exposition dump kind of scene, at least they're doing it in a way that's like incorporating, you know, the whole crux of the movie. Like, you know, it would, like, at least it's a little more novel to, yeah, have, you know, using the Baghead's power to have the person explain it versus like, yeah, they just go to, you know, the crazy person's house and,
sure,
you know, they come in and explain everything, or
I think
whatever.
They somehow do it in the most dull way possible, though, because I was even thinking about when she talks to her dad, Iris, I was thinking it'd be so good if this was more motivated by, like, oh, he'll have a specific thing that we need to know, and we have to, so we were forced to bring him back to ask him. And that should be a big moment where she turns to her friend and goes, well, we can just ask him. And like, it'd be like, oh, but we have to risk it because obviously we were told not to use it, but we have to risk it because otherwise we're going to like die or whatever. So it's like we're pushed into the corner. And arguably this as well, like, okay, this guy's got information. Maybe we get the idea of, oh, we can do this. We can find out the information. But like you said, Baghead sort of takes the thing herself. It's not like that was the plan necessarily. So it doesn't feel as exciting, and then it is presented as the most generic talking over photographs and drawings monologue that you've seen in a horror movie. So yeah.
What a shame. And then the friend just gets sucked into the hole.
Yes, the friend gets dragged out of the hole because there's nothing down here to protect her. Yeah. And because this whole time, because of the whole thing, like the interaction with her dad, I can't remember why, but she, like, Iris was like passed out in the bathroom, right? And basically, she wakes up and she hears like her friend, right? I think her phone rings first, but then she hears like some staticky, like, and broken up speech on the phone, and she hears her coming from behind the wall downstairs, and I swear she goes through that hole in the wall so quickly, and I'm like, you were told that this thing will try and get you to cross that threshold with every fiber of its being, with its supernatural powers, and you just cross willy-nilly. And again, if it was more defined where she like really made it clear she understood that risk, but she was doing it anyway because she cared about her friend, that might have been a good character moment. But instead, she just saunters in with almost like no care in the world.
No, I mean, I totally agree. Like, that is like one of the big things that's hanging in the movie that, you know, okay, like at some point they're going to have to go through this hole in the wall and it's going to be a big thing. And yeah, the way it's just treated as like, yeah, there's like very little hesitation. Like, all right, I'm just going to go in here. And, you know, there's like lots of stuff you can do. Like, if you just think about, like, she could have called Baghead out and then before going in there and being like, hey, did you kill my friend? Like, you have to tell me the truth. Or like, I don't know, do something like, I command you to stay in this spot while I go inside and explore or something. Like, I don't, you know,
yeah,
I don't know if those would have worked, but like something you could try.
Yeah, I don't think that would work because I feel like once she crosses the threshold, the power of like you have to do what I say is gone. But at the same time, yeah, she should probably try something. Maybe even like try and lock her in a box or something outside.
Right? Yeah, sure.
I don't know. Like, so you get in this box, and I'm going to padlock it.
Yeah.
And again, maybe that wouldn't work. Maybe she'd have supernatural powers to get out. But you know, worth
at
trying.
least you're trying something. Yeah.
But she sort of looks around and she finds her friend, and her friend's talking to her. But of course, when she is traveling a bit and they're trying to find their way out, she finds the dead body of her friend, right? So the friend she's found is not the real friend. It's actually Baghead and an illusion, right?
Whoa.
Right? So we get this ridiculous scene where Baghead ends up like hanging from the ceiling and is looking down with a CG mouth and like does like a growl or a scream at her. Yeah. And I get so pissed off at this because Iris just runs to the exit, right? She runs through the little maze of tunnels and she gets to the exit and she sort of like jumps out the hole in the wall and she's back in the basement and she's on the floor panting as if, oh god, I'm terrified, like Baghead might do something. And like Baghead's coming towards the hole in the wall, but all I could think was, you're back on the other side. There's no problem now, surely. Like surely you can just give her orders again. Yeah. And this is the moment where Neil comes in and like picks her up and I'm like, why are you even here? Like, what purpose did you have to come back necessarily?
Yeah.
All very odd, this part of the movie. Like every decision of how the characters made their choices, how it was captured on film, all of it was just weird. Like I didn't like any of the choices being made here, even if some of the concepts were fine or solid.
Yeah, I was alluding to it earlier, but it looked very bland and cheesy when they go into the other side, and it just feels like it's just like these very generic tunnels, but it just looked like a really bad like TV set or something. Like if there was like a sitcom from the 90s where like a character was like in a cave or something, like it would have looked like that. Very boring.
Which wouldn't be that. I mean, I would probably forgive that if I was into the story and I was into the characters. You know, it would be much easier to just let that go. But yeah, it is worth mentioning. Yeah, and then Neil gives her a couple of pills to calm her down, but it ends up knocking her out as if he's roofied her. And Neil takes this opportunity, and we're kind of getting into the end game here, to go down and reactivate his dead wife. And we find out that not only does she believe that he caused her accident because he gave her something to quote-unquote calm down so they could have a proper discussion, he says it's not his fault she ran to the car. How was he to know she was going to do that? But she died in a car accident. We also find that she was pregnant and that she was wanting to leave him because she didn't want to raise a child with him because she was scared of him. And this is, obviously hurtful to him. He doesn't want to hear this. But then, of course, again, there's no protection. The 2 minutes are up. Baghead, still wearing the wife's face, starts saying, hey, we can be together again. You could be, like the new keeper. In fact, I think he even tries to do that first at the start of the scene. He like whips out the deed and tries to write his name on it and says, hey, it's me now. Like, I'll be in charge and we can be together forever, me and my dead wife. Because he actually tries to bargain with Baghead and says, hey, if I am the keeper and like you promise to let me see my wife whenever I want, like I'll keep feeding you, like I'll bring people down here to talk to you and you can keep getting more powerful. We'll have a mutual beneficial relationship. And of course, the whatever. But Baghead starts manipulating him and saying, hey, we can be together again, we can be together forever, but you can't be the keeper while the current keeper's still alive. Your name just magically disappeared off the deed because you're not the living keeper. So if you kill her, and by this point, Iris has woken up and stumbled to the stairs and is hearing this conversation. So this interesting premise turns into him chasing Iris around like a serial killer, trying to kill her because he wants to become the new keeper. So it just becomes a really generic, like, cat and mouse chase at the end.
Yeah, and again, it feels like so cheesy. Like it just reminds me of like a sitcom or something where like someone's listening in on something behind a door, and yeah, because it's like she's not that far away from him, and yeah, she's just like fully, sticking like her head out and everything, like, listening to everything that's going on, so that, the like whatever they're planning, and then the guy's like, oh, like don't worry, she's not gonna know about it, and then like. Baghead's like, she already does, and it feels like it's supposed to be kind of this big like reveal, like, oh, turn around, she's listening to us, but it's like, well, we've already known she's been listening.
Oh yeah, that's actually a thing I've not mentioned yet, is Baghead's voice, because obviously we've spoken about when it's the dead person, but Baghead does have a voice when it's just Baghead occasionally, and it's the most generic, like, I'm going to talk like an evil witch voice. Like, it's the most generic thing ever. The line that made me laugh though is coming up here, because he's chasing Iris up the stairs, right? Like not the basement stairs. Like he's already chased her through there. They're going up the main stairs of the pub, and he pins her down and tries to hold her down. And she said, what does she say? She says something to the effect of, like, you don't have to do this. Like, you're letting her take over, blah blah. I can't remember exactly what she said to like incur this line. It's like, but you don't have to do this and not bring your wife back, or you don't have to kill me, blah blah blah. And he just yells out, and it really made me laugh, because he just yells out the phrase, "But I don't want to do that." And that line really made me laugh, because it was the most plain way to say, no, I'm going to do this anyway, no matter how horrible it is. But he just says, no, I don't want to do that. It made me laugh so much.
Oh yeah, I remember that. My wife and I laughed a lot at that, because that is exactly like how our son, like, if he doesn't want to do something, that's like the exact like tone and way he'll like say it. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, it's such a little kid thing.
So yeah, I mean, I would never have predicted this movie was going to like end more or less on the roof of the pub with like him chasing her. And honestly, the ending's kind of surprising. At least I guess I'll give it that, because he does kill her. Like, she's climbing off the edge of the roof and he pushes her off. She falls to her death, and he brings her down to the basement and gives the Baghead something of hers. So he pulls the bag off, and it's now Iris, the main character, is now been resurrected through Baghead. And she's like, wait, did you kill me? Did you actually kill me? And then Baghead sort of mechanically laughs and says, no. Iris is still the keeper, and I'm now Iris, which means I'm in control. Haha. And this is when we get all the flashbacks of like everything that's happened in the movie, as if it's meant to be revealing a twist. I think what it's trying to get at is that, oh, this was all orchestrated by Baghead so that we'd get to this point, and she's used him as a pawn. But honestly, like, why did you need all these, like, these flashes don't reveal that. Like,
it's stupid.
It's so dumb. So,
and just going again, I'm assuming this is like all pretty late at night and everything. So I get
no one
that,
else lives in Berlin, Tim. So I don't know.
It's just, again, it just feels like so weirdly like lifeless that it's like, all right, even if it's late and everyone's asleep, you think people fighting on top of a roof and then pushing someone over like would maybe cause at least a few people to stir and turn on their lights and be like, what was that, but whatever, that's just another annoying thing. And so I don't like a lot about how a lot of this is going down or whatever, but I will say that again, I think this is at least kind of an interesting idea, like a way to kind of get past these rules, to be like, oh, okay, like, yeah, she's still the keeper, and now she's embodying her as a dead person, so she gets her freedom. Like, I thought, okay, like, again, like, I think a lot of the stuff leading up to it is stupid, but that's at least an idea that they had that I'm like, okay, I guess that's something.
I think my problem with this is that this implies that even once the 2 minutes are up, Baghead gets control at that point, but it implies that the soul of the person is still there until the bag's put back on. And I don't know if the movie ever set that up. Like, obviously, the faces were still
I
there,
don't know.
but the movie never really made that clear. It'd almost be worth like saying, "Oh, that 2 minute rule's also to save your loved one. Like, if you don't put the bag back on quickly after 2 minutes, Baghead keeps their soul or something like that."
Yeah, I mean, again, just going back to the point of everything just not being explained fully enough. Yeah, because I was never really sure. Like, okay, once the 2 minutes are up, is that Baghead doing their thing, or like is she a conduit to like some type of demon or something that is just going hog wild now? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's whatever.
So yeah, I remembered now at this point, the dreams that Iris had earlier. I forgot to mention part of the dream was that she saw her dad, and her dad like ripped off his face and revealed the Baghead, and it looked terrible. It was such
so bad
effect.
And like
rough.
even like by like low budget straight to streaming kind of movie standards, like these are really bad effects.
Yeah. So the movie ends with Baghead just walking out with the face of Iris. That's what she looks like. And she just walks out of the building as the place basically starts to burn behind her. Like, as she's walking up the stairs, the flames start to just sort of combust one by one. And well, one of the cheesier parts of this, actually, I thought, I mean, the fire was pretty cheesy anyway, but the don't cross this step, like, paint started like dripping like it was melting. And I thought it just looked a bit like goofy and like, why? Like, it just didn't know.
Yeah, the fire is just, it looked horrible.
Well, I mean, the final shot is like the exterior of her walking out of the building, and the entire building's on fire. But it's it's CG. It looks kind of like they're going for the carry like the prom, the school building's on fire behind her kind of moment, and it just looks like this composite shot that just looks really rough. The fire's not really there, and you can have decent CG fire, like other things have done it, but like, it felt like this movie was leaning into all these effects moments that it just didn't have the budget or the time to pull off properly.
Yeah. And I'm kind of curious too, like, who exactly are we supposed to be rooting for? Because I don't know, like, like the idea of like Baghead is just being like, a woman that's been held captive and used for centuries and just like wants her freedom or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's hard not to like, feel sympathetic.
Yeah, when you get
that.
the backstory for her, it sounds like, yeah, she at least started as sympathetic. I think the problem with Iris is that I feel like her motivations, well, they set up that she's really like down on her luck money wise, but her just doing everything for the sake of money rather than doing it because she wants to have a chance to like reconnect with her dad or something makes it harder to like get on board with like some of the decisions she makes. It's like, well, I understand you need money and I don't blame you for it. It doesn't make me look at you like a hero that I'm rooting for once things go down, so she's kind of like Katie really is the one that you want to root for more than anything.
She's the only person who I can like kind of, I feel like I can latch on to. Oh, okay, I get who this character is. Like, they're a good person, they're a good friend. Yeah, like I have very little context for who Iris is other than, like you're saying, she's down on her luck, but I mean, who knows? She could be like a raging asshole, like when she's back at school and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Because I think just like giving me more like a good motivation for her to want to explore this demonic thing in the basement would be step one. I think clearer rules. And when I say I want them to be clearer, that doesn't mean more exposition. I don't want them to be explained to me more, because that's the movie needs no more of that. But there's ways to explain these things by showing them work and showing what the limitations are and clearly defining like what happens if the 2 minutes are up or they get out or whatever. Like how is Baghead getting more powerful? Like if you feel that escalating throughout the movie, like she's getting stronger, this like psychic reach that's going out is getting more and more. But the first time she puts out a psychic reach to Iris hasn't used her yet. So like, does that not matter? Is it just because she's fed recently on someone else, I guess? I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot of that stuff you're talking about, like, that should be the fun parts of the movie, like exploring, these rules and stuff, and it's just so little is actually...
I mean,
done with it.
We're compared to Talk to Me, but the thing in Talk to Me is that they give you this main character who does make some bad choices, but when she makes bad choices, you understand why she's made them, and you feel a sense of tragedy when she makes them because the character's really well defined.
Yeah.
This character, it just kind of feels like a bit of a blank slate as a horror movie protagonist. So, and by the time you get to the end, it's like, you know, like you're struggling to find who to root for, like you say. So when the main character dies, which should be a pretty shocking ending to your movie, instead it's kind of like, oh god, that was a weird choice. Okay, now what are we doing? Okay,
Neil's our main character now.
Well, I mean, Neil's the antagonist, kind of like he's kind of a villain, but like he's also not interested enough to truly hate and want to see get his comeuppance, right? So
true, yeah.
I don't really, like I just don't give a shit in the last 10 minutes. It feels like it just, I don't know, like
I don't even really remember what happens to him. Does she just like beat his head against like the ground or something like that?
Maybe. I think he gets set on fire. Maybe, I don't know. He's definitely in there. He dies. Yeah, he's...
And other than like Baghead herself, not a lot about this movie is very memorable.
No, everything else is like this is one of these things where I finished it like and was like, oh, I think there's parts of that movie where I was kind of in a daze, just sort of like I was paying attention, but I think like my mind was trying to protect me from being too bored and just like.
We've seen enough of these movies now that like you kind of know like where it's going, and once you get to a certain point, you're like, all right, I just got to ride this out because it's not going to do anything that's going to redeem itself or suddenly become interesting.
There was like 3 or 4 times where I went back like 30 seconds because I'm like, oh, I realized I zoned out, and I you know, in case they said something important, and every single time nothing important was said, nothing of note or interest happened that I missed.
And yeah, it's like the annoying part of these movies that are like, you know, trying to take itself so seriously, because this definitely wants to be like, you know, very dramatic and emotional, and then the problem with that is that then if it's bad, it just kind of ends up being very boring, where at least if it was like cheesier and over the top, there might be like fun stuff to make fun of or laugh at or whatever.
Well, that's the thing. I do think there's a few unintentionally funny moments, but or cheesy moments, but they mostly come from like choices in camera work and editing, where it feels like they're trying really hard for a moment. Like the only line of dialogue that made me laugh was that, you know, but I don't want to do that. Like that was the one that made me laugh because it was such a silly line. But that's a little bit too little too late to appreciate it as a good bad movie. So
yeah.
Well, we're left with this sludge, this unappealing sludge. Tim, I guess it's time to rate Baghead.
I think I'll give it a 3.5. It's pretty low for me. Basically, all the points I'm giving it is just coming from having an interesting, you know, central idea and creature, monster, whatever, to it. So, yeah, I mean, the enjoyment I got, you know, from it was mostly just from that stuff, just thinking about the idea of it and exploring it, but so much of it just feels like wasted potential and just really, really cheap, you know, special effects and tropes, and just there's just like a dullness to the way the movie looked, the way it sounded. Like there's just nothing about it that, like, you know, is like, it's like, hey, like nothing about it is like, hey, I want to stand out and make you notice me or whatever. It's like, oh, this is a somewhat interesting idea that is just getting completely lost in a very forgettable cliche movie.
Yep, this is just it slots into, you know, 200 other movies we've done on this show at this point of just forgettable. There is at least a core premise that has got a few interesting ideas, which is why it's maybe a shame that the rest of it's so bland and forgettable as it is. For me, I mean, 3.5 seems a bit. I'm tempted to say 4, but it is probably like a slight step down from, say, like Night Swim, which I think I give it 4. So I'll agree with the 3.5. I think 3.5 is fair. Sounds about right. So there you go. That's our thoughts on Baghead. So winner. Well, next time, hopefully we have some better luck, because next week we are looking at Frogman.
Ribbit, ribbit.
Ribbit, ribbit, mother effer. So look forward to that. You can, of course, support the show and get an exclusive episode every month over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. The exclusive episode we did was Sleepwalkers, and we've done a lot of like funny 80s slasher movies and weird movies in the past. I know that the next few months we're going to be doing summary movies as the exclusive episodes, so you can look forward to that if you're a patron. If you want to support us and help keep this content coming, you can go get that over there. Plus, there's even more stream segments at the $5 tier and up, which we try and do a couple times a month. For example, by now there should be like a top 5 number 4s, as in the top 5 movies that are the 4th in a franchise. We did part 3s previously, last month or maybe 2 months ago at this point. But so if that sounds like a sort of fun little segment that you'd like to see, you can get all that over at Patreon. So thank you very much for joining us. Hit the like button if you're on YouTube, helps us out a bunch. And that's pretty much it. So
that's about right.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We do appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.